me because I'm not able to do it.
Of course, Franca. There we go. Cool. Yeah. So welcome everybody to our July network call. This one's going to be, if you haven't read it already, via the newsletter, kind of like a showcase of 2 Microsolidarity inspired projects. And that's part of what we haven't done that in a while on these calls, actually. Usually they've been a bit more of choosing a topic, we explore it together, or presenting something that's happened recently in the network, like summer camp or peer coaching practice. I thought it would be nice to switch it up a bit and hear a bit more about what people are up to. So that's what today's about. So I'm really happy to have Rick and Synes with us. And we were just reminiscing about how we met like 2022, 3 years ago, I think, was it? Yeah, in Belgium at the first European Microsolidarity, not exactly summer camp, it was in a big abbey, but like, I guess gathering. Yeah, and so it feels really nice to have them both here on the call and hear how they've been integrating Microsolidarity into their projects since then and how that's been going. So we'll have, I think they'll have about 35 minutes each, which will include a chance for you guys to ask any questions or just share what comes up for you. I think Rick has some specific prompts for you as well. We'll work with that. And yeah, at the end, I have some announcements to share about summer camp and how you can get involved with sharing anything in the next newsletter. So we'll come to that at the very end. But yeah, maybe as it's, let's take a little time. I'd just love to hear a little bit from everybody, just how you're arriving, maybe just a 30-second snapshot just to feel out the room. We have about 5 minutes to just check in a little bit. And oh, great, here comes Ewan as well. Yeah, does anybody want to start us off by sharing how are you arriving on the call, or what's alive for you, and then you can just pass it to the next person. Yeah, who feels called to start? And you don't have to if you don't feel like it. You just say pass. I might pick on someone. Or I'll. Oh, great. Awesome.
I feel curious. And yeah, I think I'm curious and excited to be here and also hear about people's projects. Yeah, I'm just discovering Microsolidarity, so I'm pretty intrigued.
Thanks, Bispa. Do you want to pass it to someone else?
James?
Hello, all. I'd say I'm arriving in action or kind of in flow with a bunch of stuff going on. Yeah, I love to hear about projects and updates. And my own most salient project is I'm 1 week away from the start of what's called a developmental practice series with the Intentional Society Practice Dojo. So I'm preparing for that and still spreading the word about it as well for yeah, people's own personal development in a collective relational practice-based environment. So yeah, that's a lot of what I'm on about, you know, kind of relates to that kind of mode of interacting. And yeah, I'll share a link, but yeah, good to be here and good to see folks. I look forward to learning more. And I don't know, I'll pass to Eoin because I'm seeing his background and flashing back to when I was in physical space at Alchemist.
Hi, thanks, James. I just saw on my phone a notification about this like 10 minutes ago, and because I'd forgotten about it. So I felt excited because I felt I missed maybe the last 2 or 3 ones somehow. So I feel excited to be back here and seeing familiar faces and new faces. So I'm arriving a little in a hurry and yeah, kind of a little bubbly. Jamie?
I am
it's a little extra heavy to shift my attention to actually being here. I was just on a couple of calls, and I guess I'm just still sort of frazzled in there and maybe a little over there and there. So I'm sort of like trying to wrangle the attention neurons to here. People here. Martin?
Yeah, can totally relate. I'm also still arriving in this space. Yeah, both physically and mentally, I think. Yeah, but very happy to be here and to also rejoin the contributions, which apparently have been paused since December. I'm very sorry about that. I totally missed it. So yeah. Glad to be back. Synes.
I've got to find the unmute button. I was like, yeah, I'm a bit tired today, but I'm really happy to be here and I get to share with all of you and get to see all these lovely faces again. And yeah, I feel quite good and excited about this. And who didn't you have? I think we had everyone there.
Franca and Uta and Rick. Yeah.
I'm here with my cat. Hello. And it's nice and warm. I enjoy the warmth. I lived in Italy for 15 years, and the reason was that I like the heat. He likes the heat. He's from Rome. Yeah, I'm super excited. I'm glad to be here. Glad I could make it to see Rick and Synes and their projects, and to get some inspiration for my own. Yeah. And I'll pass it on to Franca.
Do you want to pass, Franca, because you're driving? Okay. Yeah. Oh, I need to unmute you. There you go. Yeah. I got it, I think. Oh, no, I can only ask you to unmute. Sorry, you need to embrace your own agency and press the button. I think. Yeah.
I just want to say, stay safe.
Yeah, stay safe.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing. Okay, I'm going to pass you by and move on to Rick because I can't unmute you myself. Sorry. But I did hear you in Lanzarote.
Oh, here I am.
No.
Here I am. Yes. Okay. Yes. I had a free moment where I could do that. Hi. Thanks. Yeah, I'm, as you can see, I'm a little bit divided with my attention, navigating what's at 60 kilometers per hour at least, and a video screen, which I'm not supposed to do, but that's how much I like to be with you guys. And I'm sad that I can't be here for longer, but also feeling happy to reconnect, to connect just a little bit. So thank you.
Thanks, Franca. I can mute you again. Oh, there you go. Good. Rick, how about you?
I'm arriving bubbly, even more so now, hearing Franca. Don't worry about our faces. Just enjoy the sounds of our voices and get where you need to be safely. Yes, I'm bubbly. I think about this stuff a lot. I don't know if I can speak about it as eloquently because it's been such a long time since I've seen some of you and new faces and the whole thing. But that's a very beautiful, bubbly feeling of being with people who care about this stuff. So I'm glad to be here and glad to share.
Thanks, Rick. As for myself, let's not forget myself. Yeah, arriving kind of calm. I think the nice warmth is, and like arriving off a plane this afternoon has made me feel sort of in this slightly detached from reality mode, but also kind of maybe that helps being on Zoom, where we're in this sort of cyberspace anyway. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this call. It's been a very busy month of lots of travel and sharing Microsolidarity in different places as well, which has been great. But it's just nice to have this rhythm of this network call once a month and tuning in with the same people, and looking forward to showing something about summer camp later, and hope that I'll see some of you there as well. But yeah, for now, I'd love to pass it over to Rick and to Synes. Maybe if you guys want to just give like a 30-second spiel about what each of your pieces will be about, and then Rick, you can kick us off. And yeah, like that. Rick, do you want to share first?
Sure. So I'm Rick. I live in Berlin. First encountered the Microsolidarity Network in 2022, as Jocelyn mentioned, at the camp there. And I've worked on a bunch of community projects, but today I'll be talking about one called Liminal Learning, which is a year-long path hybrid kind of offline and offline program for young people ages 18 to 24. And the spirit of it is reanimating the collective skills that we need to make sense and make our way.
So,
yeah. And my name is Synes. I also go by Zoe these days. And I'm going to be talking about Cosy Club, which is multifunctional space we started in January in Helsinki. It's 130 square meters with about 34 members, very based on microsolidarity principles, a lot of mixing and matching, and I'm excited to tell you all about it.
Lovely, cool. Well then, Rick, do you want to take it away? And
yeah, sure thing. I'll start with a little spiel and then I'll share some prompts and slides. But in effect, I just wanted to introduce the project, but also specifically talk about or riff on the components of it that are most microsolidarity related. So I'm really open to feedback, comments in the chat. We've got a small enough group. Let me know kind of what's useful and what's not. So I'll share my screen. Let's see if this works. Okay, all good? Thanks, Jocelyn.
Good, although we can see the whole of the PowerPoint. Maybe if you can zoom it in just to the slide. Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh, you've got it now?
Yeah.
Cool. You see an image of Simon, one of our participants, starting a fire, not experimenting with arcane drugs. This is some feedback on this slide we received from someone. I've taken it into account. So liminal learning. Now, this is a world readiness program for young people ages 18 to 24. And the inspiration for this comes from the founding team. And we're quite a diverse founding team of 8 people. The principal one is Isabella Granick. She's a developmental psychologist and professor and designer of technology for good. And so she's worked with this age group for a long time in the university setting and out. And about 5 years ago left full-time academia to try to start seeing where some impact could be made and where she felt, we could serve young people in ways that perhaps weren't being served at traditional education places. Brian Cam, who's writing a philosophy called Neither Nor, which is very core to the curriculum, a principal of a startup kind of charter school in Canada, a high school teacher, a couple of designers, me, who's more of a community marketing guy. And I think the real inspiration here is there needs to be a return to this collective animation, collective intelligence in all its forms. And that means in person, combined with tech in ways that serves and not in ways that don't, practicing the kind of skills that help you find your way in life. And these are a bit more traditionally from like Bildung approaches to education, moral and civic education. And yeah, so this is the kind of inspiration. this slide, I mean, all I wanted to touch on here is like, I think we get that something's a bit off, and you know, all of the epidemiological data suggests that we are actually more alone. We are suffering. We are feeling aimless. We are feeling confused. We are feeling overwhelmed. In a general level, there's something going on there, and it's particularly affecting young people. And our program is trying to directly address those with collective skills to bring them into connection, into exploration, into purpose, into creativity, and into feeling empowered. So that's kind of what we're aiming for. We've got like all details about the rollout plan. We've started the first pilot last year, but that gives you the kind of context to then move into what I really want to focus on, which is how we've designed this year-long path and how it relates to kind of the literacy of scales that Microsolidarity talks about and groupings along the way and what we're trying to do with that. So this here is this year-long path, and effectively we're trying to shift from worry to wonder, and then wonder to world building over the space of this 12 months. I'll give a little summary of this path and then mention some of the design elements. But we start with a week in nature face-to-face. And the emphasis of this collective attention is more on the direct experience way of knowing. So in neither nor terms, this is the kind of philosophy underpinning the curriculum. There are two ways that we know things about the world. One is direct experience, and the other one is concepts. And this has been understood and written about a lot in philosophy over millennia. But the kind of frame of neither nor is that it is the oscillation between these two distinct trainable skills that actually allows us to navigate between self and other, between present and future, between old narratives about ourselves and old concepts and new emergent realizations. So the quest is this first week, and the very heavy focus there is on the direct experience and letting go of some of that worry, some of the scripts and what have you. So the design here is approximately 16 participants for a week. One very heavily inspired Microsolidarity aspect is the use of crews within that 16. So we do 4 crews of 4. And the particular thing is because we're doing the direct experience emphasis and bringing up a lot of feeling, stored emotion, rediscovery, those crews serve specifically as the social emotional support, the close point of contact that's not working on curriculum. So it's not crews for the purposes of doing, you know, the activities. It's crews for the purposes of processing and understanding the individual experiences and the experiences in the larger kind of cohort of 16 or 20, 22 with guides. So that's the first week. Then we transition to the hub. This is online. So effectively we'll run that in Circle, community management program. And we have weekly calls. Some of these are more curriculum based. Some of them are more check-in based, experiential based. And then month 6 to 9 is where we transfer into projects. And this is one like kind of, yeah, this is an assertion we're making that we're testing with the first group, and we think it's about right. But you can move into these heists, which are effectively like group projects, right? With a little bit of money put behind them, with a budget, with a 6-week sprint. It's that kind of format, heavily informed by design principles. We actually ship prototypes and have a demo day. We can do this as a group in a way that doesn't feel like a boring university project, that feels more like the alive collective happening and expression that it can be. precisely because we've had that connection at the start in the quest, and we've had the direct experience, and we've done the social and relational work in the lead up to this. But again, these heists are bounded experiments. It's a 6-week thing. We do them, we ship it, we practice, and then we retro. And then we get to the end of the year. And typically at the end of the year, for people in this age group, they're coming up on decisions about, well, I've had my gap year, now I'm studying again, or I'm about time when I need to change courses or change jobs. Or, and this is where we imagine community coming in. And community in this sense means effectively online network. We're not putting a flag down for any kind of place-based stuff or co-living or anything like that. If that emerges from when we have some more people in the group, great, but that's not part of community. In this sense, we just mean that network and connection for people to effectively graduate, as in, like, you've gone through this year-long path, like, reflect, and how are you going to leave? We're going to put a lot of effort into helping people leave, in the sense that we want that translation into everyday lives that we kind of go through on the way. And also this is where we'll bring in kind of partner network type things. So trying to find and just connect dots between opportunities for particular people and what have you. So there are some filmmakers in our pilot group. We've connected with an expert who's a documentary filmmaker who made this beautiful film that was a success in the documentary scene last year, and she's been wonderfully generous in kind of sharing her life path and bringing in these opportunities. So this is the kind of shape, and I think what we're hoping to feel and to see and to provide is that if you gradually build these collective capacities, both for direct experiencing together and for acting in the world together, in a considered way that, like, respects the inner to outer work, that respects the personal growth versus making a difference in the world. And effectively, if you're getting the containers right, if you're getting the relationships right, you can move young people to shift to this feeling at the end that they're more the author of the world that they're living in, and they're more able to find meaning in all those beautiful concentric circles of the Microsolidarity logo, right? I think a lot of them are feeling what matters to me but doesn't save the planet doesn't work. Like, there's a real kind of freeze in being able to navigate between these nested circles, because as we know, that's undernourished at the moment. So that's our hope and our intention with this year-long program. And so the prompt, and I wonder if I'm about 15 minutes in, probably. No, 10, 20?
About 10 minutes, yeah. 10 minutes in.
Mm-hmm. So just thinking about your own experiences with community building or with serving young people. So this specifically, we're talking about the transition into adulthood, so roughly 18 to 24. What does this path kind of bring up for you? And what do you think it is getting at or attempting, and you like what you see, and what might it be missing is the prompt. I'm very happy to pass over to, like, popcorn style for this one. Anyone?
I can start because I need to go in a second. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah,
course,
I thank you. I feel jealous. I wish I'd had something like that when I was that age. I think I would have saved myself a lot of heartache, and also I think it really would give people a sense of belonging in the world, which is a rare and precious thing. So I feel a lot of joy mixed with grief of my own, and I'd say that kind of covers it. Admiration also for doing this. Thank you.
No, thanks so much, Franco. Yeah, you and me both. I obviously part of my personal motivation in this is I did have some of that effect of turning 18 and feeling like adulthood was supposed to happen overnight, right? Like it was supposed to be solved now. The career, the what a grown-up means, the etc. And yeah, the ways I ended up getting through that were far too solo for 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 what is ideal. So yeah, I sympathize with that one a lot. And if the prompt is too narrow, very happy to like just go anywhere. We're a small enough group, we can, yeah.
I mean, I'm really excited to see this because it's something that we would like to offer here at Alchemist, and something similar that yeah, I'm curious about a lot of things. Yeah, mostly just to understand, like it's a week at the beginning, and then during the whole year after that, there's no more in-person stuff. It's all online for the whole year after the first week. Is there any sort of getting back together at the end in person, or just the 1 week at the beginning?
Yeah, there's the 1 week at the beginning. Then there are elements of the heists which are in person as well.
Oh, okay.
So that project that lands, there's sort of dedicated in-person stuff in the sense that we'll have rent a space for the last 3 days of putting things together and then demoing them in person, etc. And then right at the end, we'll have a gathering, a week-long gathering at the end. The other element
Okay.
where there's a little bit of ad hoc in person is that we recruit the people for that week mostly from the same location. So the people who did the first quest starting last year, they're mostly students and young people from Ontario, so Kingston and Toronto.
Yeah.
And so in that sense, throughout the year, they've had some ad hoc catch-ups as well. So there's a little bit, but that's much less formalized. Yeah, so those are the main sort of beats of in-person contact. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a one thing that really characterizes, I think, this group is they're making a lot of shifts in their life anyway, right? They're often moving for study or for work or for relationships. There's a lot of shuffling of space and time. And we haven't yet had a signal that like something a little bit more rooted in place or presence is something they're asking for. But it's definitely something we're thinking about. And like, you can imagine as it matures, if you continue to have quests in a similar place, you have students coming back as alumni and deepening into place again by doing another iteration as a guide, this kind of thing.
Yeah, that's also something that makes me curious about this, Rick, is like the becoming like that, having a guide at this age. And I'm curious what role the host of the program hold. Is it like a mentor role? And yeah, I remember when you talked about it before with me, there was something I was curious about, that sort of development of even the students' own, or the participants' even own like sense of leadership or capacity evolving. Is that part of it as well?
Yes. One of our co-founders, Luke, has a beautiful way of speaking about this. It's like at the start on the quest, it is much more that we are walking ahead and leading young people. And as we get to the end, we're spending more time walking side by side. And then at the very end of the program, there's ways and pathways for them to walk out front and to lead parts of it. So we're really intentional about that co-design element. I don't know yet what it looks like and how it plays out. It's a bit too early, but that's our kind of intention of allowing a growth of agency and self-direction, like through program. Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, and then the other note is that we intend that a guide does the whole year with them. So they're on the quest the whole way through to the end. And we feel that's super important as well. That's what we've done with this first one. And we think that's going to be a pretty core element. Again, because the deep experience in something more transcendent and embodied matters when you're then making something together. You've got the shared context to draw on. So that's how we think about that right now.
Awesome.
I am curious about the developmental diversity and the breadth of kind of young people's maturation and development. And yeah, how do you find the sweet spot in that program with, is it age-based, and are there particular signs or, interview process or evaluation that you're doing of like, people are ready, ready for this program, or what's the sweet spot for this program? I hear that the outcome is, they are able to take more authorship or ownership of their own world and their own life. And that sounds exactly like the kind of the classical, like socialized to self-authored, kind of developmental transition, broadly speaking. And at the same time, I'm watching my own teenagers grow, and the breadth there of some 18-year-olds are already very much working on who am I, what's my self-authored, what are my values, and my unique expression in the world. Others are still trying to master social relating basics and kind of the socialization stage. And so how do you does your program, target sort of a certain band or range of that, and how do you select for that? And are just kind of curious about the breadth of development and working with that.
Super question. Because one of the things that I'm personally most curious about is like, what is that sweet spot where the group can hold that and allow people to sort of oscillate at the level they want and stick with the group kind of work. I mean, what we do at the moment is we have an interview process. We basically speak about age and we position it as if you're worried about your path in life and you've got the courage to try something new. So it's a little bit of like, we look for a little bit of that edge of where you're willing to have a conversation to your parents and ask them and say, hey, I think this is a good thing. I'm not sure, but so it's that slight little, like, that's the tone of the thing. And then in the interview process, we've got Isabella, Luke, and Denise. Denise ran kind of student affairs, or was in a student affairs office at universities for many years. Isabella is a developmental psych with 2 teenage boys, just graduated. And Luke is a psychologist in training and a former principal of a high school. So we're basically going with their guts and hoping their guts are pretty good. And I think then the other part of it is, I think we're trying to be really intentional about drawing the line between what is the role of shared experience and what is the role of individual work. And so I think one way to say that is we want to hold as much as the container can hold and our relationships can hold. But when there is a distinct mental health challenge, specific life challenge, this gets to the point of like an individual person, individual solution, conversation between us, the young person, potentially their parents, and specialized help. The benefit we've got at the moment is we're doing cohort-based and small, so we can experiment with that. But I don't. It's certainly not like an answered question. I do think there's something about just the fact that if they're showing up for the group stuff, we're doing the collective job, and then we're trying to stay alert to whatever individual things. And we've had one pilot so far with the 11 kids. The engagement's super high, from 80-90%. One or two who haven't participated as much, but we're still in touch with, and potentially there are a few things there where their life requires something else of them right now, which is totally cool. And but yeah, it's a wonderful question. I will think about it a lot more. Yeah, done.
What James asked also just made me reflect on not just teenagers or young adults being in that place, but also seeing that generally in adults still as well, of some of us being more in like, I just need to find out how to make friends. I didn't learn how to do that. I went straight into finding a job and doing the whole, getting my resources in order, and or didn't even manage that. But that social learning is what people come to in our community building practices and in Microsolidarity as well. Like, how do I create that social bond and bring out those pro-social tendencies in the people around me and in myself? And others are more like, I have a burning desire to bring something to the world, and I kind of know what it is, but I need help to bring it. So yeah, it also makes me reflect on like accommodating to people's different like parts of their different journeys in a kind of developmental space, especially when we're talking about mutual support and growing together. That was a really great question. Yeah.
It's a great reflection on, and there's also the distinct kind of impact of the pandemic and lockdowns for this age group. And so, we often think about teenagers having some more of the social stuff kind of embedded in just their lives, right? But actually, that got a huge disruption as well. So we are getting like that basic relating stuff show up as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can you share a bit more about that first week in nature that you're doing? What's happening there? I'm curious.
Yeah, sure. So we're using nature as a proxy for the sacred, and by that I mean we are doing specific contemplative practices, time in nature, as a way to feel connected to something larger than yourself. So that is a very distinct kind of part of the programming. The neither nor component of the programming is this philosophical approach of there are direct ways of knowing the world through direct experience and through concepts. And we just do activities riffing on that in many different ways. So an example is we observe a tree and we look at the difference between what a tree is as it's observed, felt, perhaps resonated with, this kind of thing, versus our categorization of a tree, what you can combine a tree with to then impact other parts of the world. So we do all kinds of activities around this conceptual versus experiential, and we do that in sort of individual and then small group and large group settings. So this is, I would say, the primary of the practice. Then there are a few other exercises around purpose itself, values. We do a values tension exercise where we kind of help people think about what they value in life, and actually the paradoxes in values are where the interesting bit is. Like, yes, I would like to be honest, and I would like to be kind. And when those two come into clash, what does that feel like, right? So we work on this. And then we put in one good physical challenge. So it's a portage was the one on the first one, where we portaged in canoes, which is for the non-Canadians, you carry a canoe on your back and walk through the woods and then put it on the water and get yourself somewhere else. We do that and camp overnight, we didn't camp overnight this time, but we go to a location, spend a lunch there in this very remote lake where only thousands of people have ever touched the water, the indigenous peoples of that area, included. It's just a special place in the world. But that physical challenge and that group challenge is a good part as well, because that's a little bit of testing the edge of, like, there are things that you can do and that are uncomfortable but can still feel good. Yeah. And there's a bit more, I'll share links and things afterwards, but on the website there's a bit more of a description of how we break down the 5 days. And so it goes from landing in place, which is very much about the direct experience of here we are at this particular time together, through sensing, through how do we know things, through how do we make judgments about things and value things, to then what are our commitments to launch into adulthood with. So we've got about 5 minutes left. So happy to take 1 or 2 more.
I guess I have a question. Is more like a crass business question, I guess. Do you sell to kids, or do you sell to their parents, or to both? Like, who makes the decision? Is it the parents pushing the kids, hey, you really need to do this? Or is the kids get excited and talk to parents and paying for it? Or
yeah, we've had both.
What's your hope?
I mean, small sample size, right? We've had both so far. We've had kids mention it to parents and convince them. We've had parents mention it to kids and convince them. But the approach is that we're a nonprofit, and 30% of the places we aim to subsidize over the lifetime of the organization. So that means nonprofit getting funding from education outfits, so that we can always provide a cohort where 30% of the people are there for a nominal sum. They can participate, no economic barrier, and the others we're charging at effectively kind of market rates with a pay what you can kind of aspect to it on the top. But that's where you're looking at things like, in comparison to gap year things like Outward Bound, etc. So it's kind of like those are the paying customers. Then there's the funding, and then there's the research side as well. So this is Isabella's work. We're committed to open science with the methodologies and how we measure outcomes. This is also going to be a source of funding for
oh, cool.
Yeah, getting through the 50 or so students in the launch phase we intend to get through in honing the program, and then publishing the results. So that's the kind of blend that we're thinking.
Also, I had a bit of a negative reaction when you said that the nature, what was the quote, that like the nature is meant as a canvas for the psyche or something, like it's not a real thing, it's just the way where we project the psyche.
That might have been my
the sacred.
I said
we're using nature as a proxy for psyche.
No, as a proxy for the sacred. That's
oh,
my
sacred.
Australian.
Sacred. Oh, okay. So I misunderstood. Sorry. Yeah.
No problem. I have a strange accent. I've lived everywhere.
I'm curious about diversity. So you mentioned it was all from Ontario, or was that the place where the students were, like, I assume they didn't know each other before, but they came roughly from the same area, which is also why you can get funding for educational purposes in that area, I suppose. How about making this into an international thing? Is there anything in that direction where people can come from different places or in Europe from different countries and do something like that? Is there anything like that?
Yeah, all on the in the plans in plan form. But the way we're thinking about it is it's important to activate a local hub so that the connections and the face-to-face can continue through till the end of the program. And we end up with an alumni network of 30 or 50 in each little hub. So we'll kind of activate hub by hub. And we'll do our first UK one planning in the spring of next year. So it's important for that local activation, then moving into a more broad network as you kind of go through the program and exit the program. So that's roughly my time, I think, Jocelyn. So I might need to wrap it up there.
Yeah.
But thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for the awesome questions. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Rick, as well. Lovely presentation, and yeah, appreciating everyone's questions as well. Maybe we can just take a minute where if you want to write down something for yourself of like what's something you take away or some thought that or idea that inspired you from Rick's sharing, just as a little moment to digest. What do you take away for yourself? Okay. Yeah. So, Rick, I also wanted to say this reminded me very much of Jelger's work, and I thought you guys might find it interesting to chat. Yeah, I was just running a little Microsolidarity workshop for his students of a Collective Futures course, and I was very much thinking, he's really thinking about what do students need, what do those people of that age need to enter into the complexities of our world after they graduate. So yeah, it really made me think of him.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. I'll reconnect. I mean, I was deeply inspired by his work when he was at Medley, and in particular, like reconnecting with the eco self, you know, and this part of his work and how that related to climate change anxiety. So great tip. I'm going to get back in touch with him. And
awesome. Lovely. Yeah. Okay. Lovely. So we have part 2 coming up with Synes. Are you feeling ready for it, Synes?
Yeah. Hi.
Yeah. Cool. Then in that case, I will turn the spotlight to you for our viewers to have a focus attention. And yeah, all yours.
Well, thank you. Hi everyone. My name is Synes. I also go by Zoe. And originally I'm a filmmaker and a media artist and also artistic researcher, believe it or not, that's a thing. And about 8 years ago, I became obsessed with decentralization. It has always been like a thing that I was really excited about, like a passion in a way, like to find ways to organizing, like making films or workshops or events or whatever, and where everybody can bring like their full selves, you know, like towards what we're co-creating and like follow their own excitement, you know. But it's 8 years ago, it kind of started deepening into like a more formal fascination. So I got into like holacracy first, sociocracy. Then I met Rich and Natty at a seminar, at a symposium, and I learned about the 12 patterns of decentralized organizing, and I kind of started using that in practice. learning it and applying it right away. And then Microsolidarity, I was at the first gathering in Belgium. That was really fascinating as well. And so, yes, a lot of theory, but I immediately like tested everything in practice and kept iterating and improving. And what I basically discovered is that I call it like collective autonomy, because like decentralization always says like kind of like what it's not, like, but I'm really like to focus also like where we going towards, like, and for me, this way of organizing it can be far more like flexible and sustainable, right, than any kind of rigid old power structures. And Cozy Club, the name came from just my wish of like being able to go to a club where it actually like there's nice fabrics. You can be on the floor, you can like sleep there. I mean, there's gonna be loud music, but you can still like technically sleep there. It's like it's a place where it, like there's it's sensory friendly, like so. And we started it with my ex-partner Lila together in January. It's 130 square meters space. It used to be a painter studio, and we took it over and created a fully decentralized organizing model that members can participate in. And I'm gonna like go a bit into depth of like all these experiments that we're trying there and like how they're going. So if you have any questions, you can write them down, and there's a space to ask them like towards the end. And this is of course all my like own experience and my own perspective. So there's 34 of us at the moment, so each one of us has a different perspective. So I'm not talking for all the people, but yeah, and I'm learning so much from this project itself. So the first experiment basically is what I would call decentralized leadership. So like, what does being a leader mean in decentralized organizations? And for me, it's a lot about spelling things out, like formalizing things. So it took time for us to set up kind of like a certain like clean install of the organizing system, and then like invite people like to start iterating on top of that and start learning and making it their own, right? But it's also like about formalizing our own power as co-founders and acknowledging it and making that power explicit. So both the old power, because we both we signed the renting contract together, so we basically can decide to be like, okay, Cozy Club is over, we're gonna make something else. So that's technically possible, and we write that we have like our own mandates as co-founders, and so these things, and then we kind of like also give these rights away to crews and so on. So we're like trying to be as open and clear of like what our role is, and not kind of like muddle the waters with like kind of like, okay, like everybody's equal, but then some people are a bit more equal. But to be very, very specific and outspoken. But even though like setting up the system, it kind of always takes a bit of time, and we still managed to really like hit the ground running, because we had already a bunch of experience like starting different organizations and helping others with this. But onboarding new members, especially, it always takes time. But now we already have the second version of our manifesto, so there's a lot of clarification happening. At the beginning, it was we just basically we try to do as best as we can, but then also like we just sometimes just half-ass things, like, so the original manifesto was just like, okay, we basically wrote down a bunch of words that were important to us and made them look kind of nice, and then we send it out to people and see like, okay, do you resonate with this? And a lot of people actually did, but then what does anti-transactional actually mean in practice? Like, that's something, if there's just a word there, so we like expanded a bit more, and now we have a bit more like in-depth version that we wrote. And so the second experiment that we're running is the membership-based business model. So the last project that I started before the pandemic was around we were subletting. Basically, we had a bigger space. It was 250 square meters, a loft space with a lot of kind of little workspaces on the side. And so we sublet these workspaces at a bit higher rate than was usual. And with that, we kind of funded the rest of the space that we were trying to make community work with. But then there was this transactional sense of like people that wanted to have their own workspace. They just wanted to have their own workspace, and they didn't have to necessarily want to have so much to do with the community. And then so there was in the end, it kind of pushed us into being in this like old project. It pushed us into being kind of like landlords, which nobody wanted to do. So that was like a little problem there that we kind of set ourselves up for failure in the end. And so this time we kind of avoided that bottleneck by just basically saying, how can we decentralize this further? Like, how can we make the fact that we do have to pay around 1,700 euros a month in rent? Then how do we share this like equally between people, and how would we share the responsibility of that burden without making it kind of like a transactional thing? And that was really beautiful to see like how much people like resonated with that and how much it actually like worked really easily and effortlessly. So again, the clean install we did at the beginning was very much based on like asking actual people that were interested in the space like how they would like to participate, you know, like, and some people said like, oh, I actually don't want to come there, I really like what you're doing, I just want to support you in some way, like, so if I can come over like and help like that. And I was like, okay. And other people like, yeah, I want to use the space, but I don't want to have anything to do with organizing or discussions or stuff like that. And it's like, okay, that's cool. And then other people are like, I want to discuss and I want to organize. So we had like, then we ended up with 3 different like membership tiers. And the wonderful thing about like self-selection is there that now people can just basically, we have a Discord server, and then there's one bot automation where you can just basically, by the click of an emoji button, you can change your membership, and that's it. So you can go from like a green member and being a volunteer to being an organizing member, just like one click, and vice versa. So it's very great. And the other thing is about onboarding and building the shared competency, you know, like there's limits to structure, you know, like, and one thing that was felt really early on is that we basically like invited our friends and then the friends of the friends, and that was kind of like how the original kind of like members base kind of started. And now slowly there's like people joining who don't know anyone in the group, but then a lot of the people who didn't know anyone in the kind of bigger friend groups, you know, like they felt like, okay, I only know like 2 people in here, or I only know like 5 people in here. And so they have a very different experience of the space. And then it's almost like the people who are part of the friend group then kind of feel like, oh, well, this is just a place for the friend group. So why are all these like random people kind of like hanging out there? And it's like, okay, clearly like haven't read any of the descriptions that we made, but it's like really fascinating that like you get to learn all these like things with like how these expectations basically change and shift. And that brings me to the third experiment, is that basically each of the spaces has its own crew. So like we, at the beginning, we just basically took the floor plan and we decided, okay, we're going to call this a healing space because it's like, it has like sound insulation. So it's a very nice room tone, and it's like a bit small and on the side. So you can just do your own thing and nobody hears what's happening in there. Then we have the big space, which is the event space. And then part of that is a pop-up coffee shop, you know, like where there's like a little kitchen there and like couch for hanging out. And then we have a crafting room where people can like fix electronics and things like that. And like there's a ventilation, so like you can actually like do things that are a bit more smelly, for example. And then we have the office, which is the smallest room, but it's like something where there's like, we squeeze a lot of like desk space in there, and it's also like very flexible who can work there. So all the spaces are up to use for anyone of the members. But for making decisions about the spaces itself, like how are we gonna like, it's done by mandate. So there's crews that anyone can join. Again, if you're a committed organizer, if you want to be like that membership level, you can join a crew, and then you can decide in the crew to paint the walls red, for example, or change the carpet there and so on. And so like that's again like trying to like see how we can decentralize more, but then also like keep this whole process accessible, because like of course it's not always going to work. Like if there's like, if something like the membership or the participation kind of shrinks, suddenly like crews disappear and they become dysfunctional. So we have a parallel advice process running, that any member can start an advice process and can change about anything in the space. But like that we have like both these approaches. You have very decentralized kind of clustered space groups and crews that are like specialized on, for example, how do we organize events? How do we invite people externally, non-members, to organize events in there? And how do we take care of them? Who welcomes them to the space, and so on. That's something that then the events crew takes care of, and that's one of the crews that works really well, for example. And then other crews, they're not working so actively, but then we can still use advice process to kind of like make decisions for everyone. And so that's been really great. That's the third experiment, is to really have these this way of not having to have everyone in the room in order to make a decision that's very specific to maybe like a space that not everybody uses or is that interested in. So people can really, really self-select on a very profound level. And yeah, I've now led this process of like decentralizing the organization methods in about 7 organizations, and it's always been very frustrating to me, like how slow and painful, especially the unlearning process is for a lot of people kind of jumping into something like this for the first time, or maybe they have experience with similar projects before. But that's why I basically shifting now more into like sharing what I know and to help others, like avoiding the pitfalls that I ran into. And this is mainly because this like shift from like old power to new power is really, really hard. It's a beast, you know, it's tricky. The learning and unlearning often takes like a year or longer, right? I mean, I'm still learning things, and I've been on this journey for like 8 years. So, and many of these organizations that I started, they also like collapsed. Like there wasn't the energy to like support that, or like something else happened that it didn't work. And I always like learn something, and I also want to help people to make it better. And now I'm starting a YouTube channel where I kind of like offer this like small, like 10-minute like core foundational teachings from my experience, and also like to invite others to share their own, and to really like drive home the point that the best system is a changing system. You know, like there's no optimal structure that we like kind of like have to have ideological wars of like, okay, are we going to go this direction or that direction? Like it really depends, like what are you trying to do and who's there, right? And so like this is like the thing of like this constant learning. So in a way, yeah, I want people to learn from what I've already figured out and to learn with me in real time there. And yeah, and I'm also like offering this one-on-one sessions now. And I've started giving workshops and speaking gigs and consulting and trainings. And so it's like, it's really exciting to do these things. I've done a lot of like teaching in my life, like in art school. I've been like teaching PhD students and master students for doing their master things and supporting that. And so this is like really a fun way to really share this like very, very intense and deep deep process of transformation. And you know what excites me like the most about this thing is like this modularity, you know, like the idea, like if you start something, it doesn't have to end when you leave, you know, like it's a seed and it can grow into its own thing, right? And these groups and organizations, they can like just evolve and on their own. And I really like that idea, you know, like that things are not static, but that, you know, like it's actually possible that we can like reignite our imaginations, and just like there's so many like cool things that we can do. There's endless possibilities of like what kind of organizations can pop up, like film festivals, like workshops, like things like that. They just like somebody starts them, and then they kind of like the community takes it over, and it creates like a thing of its own, right? It's like world building in a way. We call it in cinema, you know, like you create the whole background story, the ideas and so on, and then the thing kind of like starts running in our imaginations, in like how we show up and so on. And the difference to like old power and like structures that are based on effort is like that they're like there is this constant effort that it takes to keep them alive, right? And so like these new modes of being that also like we're exploring here, we're teaching to each other, we're learning, it's so rooted in trust and like the sense of like richness and abundance. There's a lot of possibilities, you know, and ease. It's like it's just the sense of like moving from like a lack mindset of like this is not possible, there's red tape here, no, that's impossible, to like actually like, whoa, there's actually like literally endless possibilities of what we can do, you know, like together, and like different approaches and so on. And so and that's where also like the name like Cozy Club comes in, because it's like cozy doesn't mean like only like kind of like sheltered or like thing, but also like looking at it's not like the aesthetics, but it's like it's about like hosting, about feeling welcome, about the clarity of like understanding what's happening, and that like a certain sense of like allowing, you know, like that I can be myself in there, and so and the sense of like, yeah, like co-creating something together, right? And so in a way we're moving from fear, you know, like and making yourself small, to like actually like this joy of like, okay, like this is possible, and the biggest move in my sense is like to what I've learned in essence is like from like extrinsic motivation, like being motivated by outside things like money, social influence, and to like intrinsic motivation, so that we can like follow like actually, oh, I'm excited about this, like how are we gonna make this happen, you know, like, and then because that's like a very efficient fuel, right? It's like if you have to do a thing, extrinsic motivation, it kind of only gets you so far, you know, like, but being self-motivated, it's really like so much it gives, in my experience, like it gives so much like easier time to get things done, and so on. And like also what I'm learning a lot, because I'm very like systems focused, and so like for me it's always like the first, like also why, for example, this first project failed in a way, was that I was very much like focused on like trying to get all the systems right, and then okay, we have this system and the system inside the system and this on, so and I'm still learning so much about how to create cohesion, community belonging, like things like that. That's like my growth edge, and that's like really where Microsolidarity comes in for me. It's like this sense of like trust first, you know, like thanks. That's the thing. And yeah, if you have any questions, like please ask. I'm just trying to like give you a slice of like what this project is, but it's like based on many things from my past, and yeah, I'm really excited this is happening. Because it gives so much like like freedom, you know, like you have a space, you can like literally do almost anything in. You like go there and you can like organize a party. And it's like very little effort and money needed to actually do this. Or you need a workshop space. Well, you got it, you can do it, you know.
Awesome. Thanks, Synes. It's lovely to hear how you've been learning and as you go, and then building up to be able to run this space in what sounds like a very attuned and like going with the process of it being a living organism. And being able to also then start coaching and supporting others. There's some great concepts in there. I wrote some notes from what you were sharing to help us remember the different points, because I imagine there are some really interesting reflections from people on each of those three things, and also just on how it feels to be you in that and to be in that space. So yeah, shall we open it up to questions? Do you have a specific prompt you'd like to ask people, or should we just open it up for what sparks?
No, just whatever sparks. Yeah, just
cool. Lovely. I'll remove you from the spotlight so we can see each other. Yeah, go ahead, guys. Feel free to just unmute yourself like we did before. What was sparked as you were listening?
I'll go quickly. I was super fascinated by you mentioned the shift towards decentralized membership in like V2 after you had people paying for premium space and that creating a transactional bad platform. I just, a few little details about like that decentralization component or what the method was. And I'd love to hear because that sounds fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we started basically with so that was like Lila's initiative, for example. She was really like pushing for the like anti-transactional kind of like DNA, like to have the anti-transactional values in our DNA, you know, in the sense. I was always more like kind of like in the like, okay, no, we need to get the money together and like kind of like 100 euros minimum membership, and otherwise nothing goes, and we just like you have to contribute. And then now, and I'm really like I'm super like I came around like in a big way, because now I'm like totally like I see the vision there that like now with like more members coming in and having this pay as you can option, I still kind of like wanted to have like a minimum membership, so I set it at 10 euros a month. It's like and that's like for people who like really cannot afford this, but like we started like the first season like at 6 months with 100 euros a month a membership, and then a bunch of people signed up for that. But then also people realized they're not using the space as much as they thought they would, and then it's like something else than they expected, and then they're kind of like adjusting to that in a way. But it's been relatively like easy to maintain kind of like the participation in that, and yeah, and we're constantly like adjusting like how we're like communicating with people about that, you know, like that the first intuition is always like to kind of like, okay, what am I getting for the money I'm paying? You know, like there's always transaction. Well, you get the thing to exist, you know, like that's it. You get to be a member, you know, like that's all you're getting. Like nobody gets a space, you know, nobody gets their own kind of like thing, even if you're like paid like full membership or double membership, it doesn't matter, you know, like it's all, or you pay 10 euros a month. That's it's like, yeah. Do you have any more specific question of what you're interested in, Rick, or?
Oh, just to, if I understand it, it's basically one tier of membership where you get everyone gets access in the same way and rights in the same way, and then they choose the amount they pay, and they can modulate that up and down by themselves. Basically, is that
yeah,
right?
but people like commit for 6 months at a time, so we ask people not to change the membership downwards, and that they commit to something they can like sustainably like commit to like for the whole period of time, so that people don't have to like in between, because that was also a thing like in the last space we did, that people were just like okay, somebody's moving out, we have to find somebody else to replace them. So there was constantly this like kind of like like gameplay loop of like, okay, who are we gonna get in next, and like who's the, okay, does this person fit, and it's like this decision making. And now it's like it's a more, so we're like basically outsourcing like this decision-making process to the members themselves, you know, like it's not, there's nobody like, there's no bottleneck anymore, you know, like the more, and that's kind of like this constant question of like, okay, how can we decentralize this more? Like, how can we like make this more accessible? How can we make this like easier and more understandable? You know, like it's a learning process, but it's like, yeah, it really has an impact, especially now seeing with the self-selection on Discord that people can just, they can join crews also just by a click of the button, and then the whole kind of like part of Discord just opens up for them. So if you change from a green member to a red member, you know, suddenly you have like 80% more channels, you know, like that you're, and it's like literally a click of the button and then you're in, you know, it's really cool. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Thank you.
I'll show you a bit,
I'm really
yeah, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Please, yeah.
Okay. I mean, it sounds fascinating. I'm really interested to learn more because, you know, I'm trying to do the same thing or something very similar with my space, bridge space in Portland. And, you know, I've tried different models in the past, and now there's sort of a new set of people who are interested in making it work. And we're also exploring membership models and what you get for different kinds of memberships. What's the perceived value in the membership? And also we have an additional layer where the part of a membership includes having equity in the building itself. Like it's a sort of exit to community, like people, I own the building and people who have memberships would eventually own the building over time. Uh, so that I don't have to be the landlord anymore eventually. But yeah, so I'd like to talk more maybe outside of the call because I'm curious about how you do the decentralization, because I see that as a big problem, the sort of drama of having some sort of inner circle that makes decisions for people. And I'm also really interested in not having the transactional thing. Yeah, so I don't know, it sounds awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah. I'll share with you the links to the manifesto and like also my like website, so you can like check more. Like there's nothing about Cozy Club on the website, but you can just, if you need to find me, you can find me there. But there's the manifesto, at least there's all the anti-transactional stuff. I also have like a text that goes deeper into that still, but that's fascinating because like all the words we had in the original manifesto, like I did not think that anti-transactional was like the biggest obstacle for people, because we're like a lot of our friends are kind of from like, let's say, alternative circles and like very like active and activists and so on, and then that's like something that's like everybody like bumps up against this thing of like, what am I getting for this? Like, how am I like my like I'm doing more than this, or like so on. Like this is a constant thing, and so like it's really nice to get to then like talk on that like directly, you know, to be like, okay, well, this is what it actually means in practice, you know, like to support people and kind of like coming out of that way of thinking, mindset.
I don't know. I keep thinking when people ask, because I'm trying to convince people that they get, you know, that we could just, if we tell the right story, people will just want to support it. And there's that, I don't know where the movie with this quote comes from. I mean, like, what am I getting? And I want to tell people, you get nothing. Like, stop asking about what you're getting. You get nothing. You get to be part of this. It's amazing. What the fuck else do you want? You get nothing. You know, just stop asking what that. Come on.
Anybody else have some like questions or
I'm
comments?
also curious about the like business aspect, because like how do you actually make your life? I mean, I know you're doing coaching and stuff, but how potentially in such a project people actually make their lives? is a question.
Like make a living with the project?
Yeah.
Oh, so this is like the thing that it's more like it's a space that you can use. So usually in Helsinki, if you want to have your own workspace, it's from like 300 euros upwards to have your own private workspace. So, but then again, you have a space that you're not actually using that much, right? Like you're using it maybe like on some, but then you go on holidays and so on. So the thing of like collectivizing that is like that was something that always kind of like fascinated and irked me also, like that there's so much like resources and buildings and computers and whatever that's like only like one person owns, you know, and then nobody else can touch, and then it's not really like used, like it's maybe like 20% usage if at maximum, you know, like so on. And so like this collectivist approach more like, okay, we have what if we put it together, like the resources of 34 people in this case, you know, like we can actually afford to have like a kick-ass space in the center, and we're just a bunch of hippies, you know, like, and we can like actually make this happen, you know, in a way that nobody gets burned out, you know, like we have access to this thing, and we can actually like people can work there, people can make paid workshops there, people can like give like sessions there. So it's actually, it gives the foundation for somebody to have their livelihood also there, and you don't have to have this like this stress of actually like jumping into something that may or may not pan out. And also like in many cases we want to give the opportunities to people to experiment there, so that it's not like the space, thanks to the membership model, you know, the space is already self-reliant. You know, we have our goal, which we're like a little bit below now, but we've basically hit every month since January, is that we want get the rent that we have to pay to the landlord plus 25% on top, so we can like invest back into the space, and in the future also like back into ourselves. So everything that we get from events is on top of that, you know, everything that we get from somebody organizing something there, it's then donation based, so people can experiment what kind of workshops they want to do. They don't have to be straight away, there isn't like the fiscal pressure, you know, like you have to make money with it because you have to pay also for the space, but you can take a risk and like do something that you know, we had a very like sensual, almost erotic kind of like blindfolded pottery workshop where there was no pottery output, you know, but it was just a kind of like moment, and it was really beautiful, you know, like it was so fascinating to like be able to that. But it's like it takes a lot of like just having the space is like hard, especially here in Helsinki. There's not so many like spaces available, and it's quite expensive, you know, like to rent. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense in sense of like creating a shared resource, that makes sense. But for example, it doesn't make sense in Rick's example, maybe because probably you do this as a full-time thing, and I don't know, that part a bit confuses me, because yeah, I mean, two different modalities we talked about here, so I'm trying to understand how the business aspect works in both different models.
Are you referring to it being like financially viable for the initiators?
No, like for example, like I understand Synes, your version of it, like it's more like a shared resource space kind of a setup. But in Rick's your example, it's more like a project that probably you are fully invested in too. So
Yeah, so
make your living out of that project, I guess.
I mean, in our case, we are setting up a non-profit organization that is effectively running a school, selling a program, earning revenue that way. It will need to have 3 or 4 full-time employees within 2 years to kind of keep running the programs. Yeah. So at the moment, I'm doing it like partial pay, and the founding team of 8 is kind of scrapping it together with a bit of pay, a bit of seed capital from Isabella, and then as the thing grows, it will need to be a structure like that where like, yeah, 4 people, I would say, will need to be full-time on it to kind of achieve what we want to do with the number of programs and the potential like spread it can have. So, but we'll see. Yep.
Yeah, it's interesting for me to see different models, like how microsolidarity can potentially work in different modalities. This is why I was curious to understand that better. Thank you.
I'm curious about the model with the events. If you, because one thing that people are pushing in my case with Bridge Space is that you get credits to attend events as part of your membership, as opposed to just having like access to the space. But then that requires the people who put on events to offer a free entrance to some people who are members, and to me it gets more complicated. But I wonder if that's something you looked at or considered, or
yeah, so this is like something that I get a lot from, especially people joining like in the organizing tier, you know, like becoming a member and then kind of becoming a committed organizer, that there's a lot of this kind of sense of like, okay, we need to like micromanage everything, right? And so we need to like kind of plan, how do we do this? Since we have already the income is stable, the space is running, it's accessible, people have access to it, you know, like everything's okay. All of this other thing, it's kind of like we can see what works and what doesn't work and let it unfold on its own time. And then we can actually like act or react when there's an actual problem. So we don't have to like wait and check like all the different like possibilities of what could go wrong. Good enough for now, safe enough to try, basically. Yeah. And that's like always like coming back to the sense of like, okay, what's actually like necessary. We don't need to like have a clear distinction. Okay, this kind of event is 25% of the thing. No, we just want people in the forum to clarify, to be transparent. I'm going to ask for this much money from this event, from the people, and Cozy Club is going to get like a percentage. It's going to get the donation. It's going to get nothing. You know, it's all okay. We just want that to be like written down in the forum. Anyone can read it, can comment on it, and people can, so that the community basically then can start to like take ownership of what's happening in the space.
Cool.
We're going to have to wrap up now, unfortunately. Well, the great questions. I had a complete brain fart just now. I thought we had another half an hour. I was wondering why we had so much spaciousness. And I was like, then suddenly realized 2 minutes ago, wait, we have to wrap up. So it's a little bit abrupt maybe, but I think there was some really great questions. Rita, I appreciate you bringing also the one about finances. How do we make these community microsolidarity inspired projects work on a business level as well? I think it's beautiful what you were speaking to, Synes, about going beyond being transactional and more, I guess, into relational and built on trust. And I do believe that these experiments are finding a way to be based on trust and also be financially viable and still bring in the business mindedness which is needed to keep them afloat. So it's a great edge to work with. Thank you both so much for bringing your projects. It was super illuminating. Guys, if you want to share anything in the chat as thanks to them, please do feel free. In the meantime, I'm going to share just 2 links here, just quickly. One is about summer camp, as promised. I just wanted to do a little share about that. The tickets are now open and available. There's only 40 spots because we're doing it at Rich and Natty's house just outside Barcelona, and it hasn't got much capacity for more. So it's going to be a bit smaller, more intimate this time. We're very excited about creating a bit more of a boot camp vibe. Everyone should be leaving with some kind of growth in their hosting capacity or developmental path. I think it's going to be also really sweet. It's going to be hot. There's a pool. There's a beautiful forest. It's going to be lush. It's going to be yin as well as yang. Read the Substack piece there, which Andre and I wrote just a few days ago. Should give you more information. And the next newsletter is coming out at the end of this month. So if there's something that you'd like to add about a project that you're doing, or a piece of writing you've written about any concept to do with microsolidarity, or a piece of art you've created, or some questions you've been having, feel free to add it there, or an event that you're hosting or have heard of that would be useful for the rest of the network to hear about. It's there, so you can just add your piece via that link there. Yeah, got some lovely messages in the comments there. Franca, it's great that you managed to stay. I'm going to wrap it up here for people who need to go right now, but I'm going to stick around for another 5 minutes, just with Rick and Synes, just to say thanks and hear how they're wrapping up. Yeah, lots of love to you all. Looking forward to seeing you next month. Feel free to unmute yourself and say bye.
Thanks so much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Ciao, everyone.
You.
Bye.